Hello, Somerset County, and welcome to this edition of the Scoop Podcast. My name is Chris Edwards, president of the Somerset County Business Partnership. Before we get started, we have three organizations that help support the launch of this podcast studio. Our founding partners, the County of Somerset, Unity Bank, and Techie Geek, who we'll hear from more in a little bit. I want to thank those partners so much for getting us started here in the Somerset Business Hub. So today we have a great episode lined up, and I think it's one very timely for not only where we are as a county, but where we are as a business community in this country. Today's guests are Terrence Bird and Jeffrey Wright, and they're here today representing Somerset County Black Caucus. Over the past year, the business partnership has been working with the Black Caucus to help our business partnership help better serve Black-owned businesses throughout our community. And outside of that, individually, they've been a great members to the partnership in their own right. So welcome to the podcast, Terrence and Jeffrey. How are you guys doing today?
Wonderful.
Yeah, we're doing great.
This podcast is, as I mentioned before, is sponsored by Techie Geek, your IT superheroes. I just want to give them a quick shout out before we start. Visit them over at techiegeek.com or check them out on social media at Techie Geek. Now we got all the business out of the way, we can get down to talking about something the three of us have been working on behind the scenes for a while, but really through the partnership over the past year is getting more Black businesses engaged and involved in the business community. But before we get to that, I would love for you gentlemen just to give us a little background on yourselves, your day jobs, and then maybe how you got involved starting the Black Caucus.
Sure. Well, first of all, my background is in healthcare. I was former C-suite executive for several healthcare organizations in the state of New Jersey, one being Horizon NJ Health. I started their first Medicaid and Medicare plan back in the day. I also ventured out of state. I went to Kentucky, and I was the CEO of Aetna for the state of Kentucky. I took an early retirement, and at that time I started my own consulting business, healthcare related as well. And I still work in that space for some large healthcare companies throughout the country, and I do that as my day job, and it keeps me pretty busy. And one other thing is I'm a proud grandfather, so I also have those grandfather duties.
So you're certainly not retired, is what you're saying. And how about you, Jeffrey?
Oh, great. And thanks for taking this time out to meet with us as well. Jeff Wright, financial advisor. I've been in the business now for about 30 years. Started my career out on Wall Street for 4 years. From there, I was brought over to Merrill Lynch, where I worked there for just about 20 years. Then they went through some situations that took place. I stayed around a couple years thereafter, and I'm talking about the crisis in 2008.
Yep.
So probably about in 2010, I was acquired by a company by the name of Garden State Securities. So I'm a licensed financial advisor. I'm an IRA, and I'm also licensed in insurance as well. So my business probably consists of doing business with people like yourselves, business owners, individuals, just helping them meet and exceed their goals, whatever they may be.
That's well, you've gone through a lot of challenges in your career, whether that's 2008, the pandemic, well, obviously what we're going through now as we enter a new era of tariffs and kind of the changing sphere. But I'm sure you've brought a lot of that expertise in working with individuals to what we're going to talk about today, obviously, with the Black Caucus. So I'll start there. So I think the Somerset County Black Caucus is it was started 10 years ago, correct? So give me the origins of why there was a group of individuals who felt there was a need to establish this group.
Yes. About a little over 10 years ago, Peg Schaefer reached out to Chanel Robinson and Tina Jallo about the need to start a African-American Black Caucus. And from that initial meeting, Chanel and Tina Jallo moved forward with that idea. It was started in 2015, and the reason that it's needed because we want to engage all individuals in the community. And all individuals in the community also means the black population in the community. We want to become their voice, we want to empower them, and we want to make sure that we're a resource. And as we've moved forward and evolved over these 10 years, we just recently had our 10th anniversary of our scholarship luncheon. And during that luncheon, we recognize business community, but we also recognize the future leaders. And those future leaders are young men and women who are either in college or about to go to college, and we provide scholarships for those individuals.
Wonderful. That's amazing. And what have you done any demographic studies on the evolving population of not just African Americans in Somerset County, but when it comes to being a share of business owners? Is there, we always talk about here at the partnership, you look at the growth of several towns in this county, Franklin Township, Hillsborough, just tremendous population growth. Is the African American population growing kind of equivalent with the total growth of the county? Is there a discrepancy amongst black ownership when it comes to businesses versus other minorities? Do you have any data on there, or how does your group kind of look at the big picture, I guess, when it comes to our business community?
Sure. Well, first of all, the community is, a great place to live, especially Somerset County. So all those communities have seen an increase in the black population. The studies that were recently done that were actually out there is a disparity study.
Yep.
And that's a study that was done throughout, the state of New Jersey. The results are something that no one in this state is proud of. And the results, as you look at the study, and men as well as women of color, you can see that the black population really wasn't represented well throughout the state.
Right.
And just to add on to that, it's a heavy lift, and we all recognize that. And I'd like to give props to the governor for at least releasing it, because in the past this was done before, but it had never been released to the public.
Mm-hmm.
So to Governor Murphy, I'm very happy and pleased that he released that information. But now we have to roll back our sleeves and we have to get to work.
Right.
So with that being said, and one of the tasks that the Black Caucus is being challenged with is bridging that gap. We now know the numbers. We now know there's an issue. But now how do we build the bridge to connect that? And beginning or the easy look is, hey, we know we represent less than 1% of businesses, procurements, anything for the state of New Jersey. However, we have a population that exceeds that.
Right. Right.
So we know what we need to do. Would you like to add?
Yeah, and one of the things is, we're underrepresented, when it comes to procurement and getting business. But a lot of that's due to understanding the process, which can be intimidating.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that you and I have spoke about, for the past year or so, is how do we bridge that gap? And we can bridge that gap through resources that are available through the partnership. I mean, you develop the business hub. Okay, and that's the ABCs on how to get started. Also, you have entrepreneurs and former, business owners, current business owners that will come in and mentor folks.
Yes.
These are the things that we need to communicate to our community, and we're starting to do that right now. And that's part of the process. It's not that we're not here. It's not that we don't own businesses, but how do we engage that population, the black population, not to feel intimidated, to ensure them, to wrap our arms around the population and say, these are opportunities.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. And one, I want to give you both props for your role in this. I think sometimes there's so much going on at the partnership that our biggest problem is we have a hard time of effectively getting that word out to the broader community. So we need partners like yourselves who can kind of disseminate that from us down to the businesses. And one of the things that comes to mind that that's a program that is launching. It's already launched. It's launching before we or after we record this. It's launching in May, but we're launching a partnership with the NJEDA to do almost office out. We're doing office hours in this room in the podcast studio with the NJEDA. The state launches a lot of programs through the NJEDA, grants, loans, that unfortunately by the time word of mouth trickles down to business owners, and this is all business owners of small businesses, the program's already out of money, right? And
Totally
that's such a consistent thing that happens. So we're trying to set up a program where instead of going to an event, right, where you're in a room where you're kind of getting broad details about programs, a business owner can come in here and sit down and speak with someone from the NJEDA and say, here's my business, what do I qualify for? Like you only can get that in one-on-one consultation. So that's a program we're launching that we're going to look, through the Black Caucus to get that out to business owners about what's going on. But you're exactly right. I think there's just there's so many levels of barriers there of getting that information out that we're trying to break through.
Absolutely. Years ago, we used to say it was access to capital.
Right.
But it's not only access to capital, it's access to information. And let's be frank, when you're running a business, there's only so many hours in a day.
Yep.
And to manage that, grow that, pay your employees, deal with all the news, the issues with that is challenging within itself.
Yep.
And then to go out and try to gather the information and say, hey, I want to apply for this particular grant, or I want to apply for this or that. You almost need to hire an outside staff person to take care of that.
It's a luxury item. Information has become. Yep.
Exactly. So one of the things we're really trying to go to task with is just that, providing information to our community.
Right.
And as simple as that sounds, it's real work.
Yeah.
I think me and Terrence, one of our next things is going to be going out and just basically cold walking to businesses that we find and saying, hey, how's your business? How can we help you? Would you want to join? Why don't you sign on to our website and see what information we have? And in fact, I would also tell, anybody who's watching this or listening to this, please go to the SCDCBlackcaucus.org just for the information, the resources. We are in the process of building out a contact list for just other African-American businesses. And you don't have to create the wheel. It's already been created. It's kind of, let us show you the way. Let's build that bridge. So that's kind of where we are.
Yeah. Yeah, and the continuation of that is, when you walk in these rooms a lot of times, and I felt it when I was climbing the corporate ladder, you walk in and you're a minority in that room. Mm-hmm. And when you walk in the room, it can be intimidating. But we want to take that away and say, look, we belong.
Yep.
We're here. And we're not going away. And at the same time, there's access to other opportunities in the community. So we're all here. We're all part of the Somerset County community. Let's engage with the process.
Yep. I've told you both, I've been with the partnership 12, 13 years. And I remember walking into our board meeting or other meetings, and for me, obviously it wasn't an ethnicity issue, it was an age thing, right? I would go in as 25 years old, and most people were 55, 60, 70 years old, and there was an intimidation factor of that, and that was the only way I could kind of put myself in someone else's shoes in terms of that lens. And we've been very intentional here with when you walk into an event, a meeting, a program, anything that we do, that everyone feels welcome. But you also need pioneers like yourself, people, Chanel, Sarah Sui, Monica, all people in leadership here at the partnership who have paved the way for their peers and their next generation to help make everyone else feel comfortable. So. Yeah. I'm sure this work that you're doing, sometimes it's hard to see, especially when you have long days and you hear stories about businesses, shutting their doors or,
Yes.
going through a downtime. But a lot of this is paving the way for people of the next generation where they
Absolutely.
don't have to have that. It's one less barrier for them to have to deal with in probably a road full of barriers.
Absolutely. I wish we had that problem with a 25-year-old.
So besides, obviously, you brought up the disparity report, which I
Yeah.
think was something everyone knew, right? But it was like
Absolutely.
when you see it in writing, you can't, it was impossible to ignore at that point.
Exactly. We're talking, it's actually 0.33%. So
Yeah.
it's not even 1% goes to minority or African-owned
Yeah.
businesses. So, it's there. We know we know what the task is. So now we just have to build and work towards filling it. And again, we know it's going to be tough. We know it's going to be work, but it's something we can get done.
Yeah.
So for now, we're just really trying to connect people to the information, find out what their issues are with their businesses, and just try to get everybody to the next level so they can level up.
Right.
We
Right.
know we're not going to solve it overnight, but we're working towards it, and we at least know what the task is. We
Yep.
know what we're aiming for.
Yep. So this access to capital and information is one. I think you really put a really good spotlight on that. Are there any other issues that you hear when you talk to other Black-owned business owners that are specifically impacting their businesses when you go out and do this canvassing?
I would start off by saying, when you hear tariff talks and things of that nature, of course, it sounds scary. Depending on what news source you're following is going to give you a different spin.
Right.
I'd liken to say that if you're worried about tariffs and that kind of thing, only you know what's going to affect your business. It's kind of like going and seeing a doctor. You're going to have to check in with yourself and your gut instinct, and you're going to have to protect yourself accordingly. My financial advisor hat would tell me, we might want to look for needs instead of wants right now. Financial diet wouldn't hurt right now, which means let's not go out and buy something you don't
Right.
necessarily need. Let's let it play out. But I like to think, down the road somewhere, there's some smart people, hopefully, that see things that we might not see, and they might be able to hopefully mitigate and handle these situations. So I'm telling everybody, don't jump,
Right.
But, if you're running a business, be cautious, be smart, but check in with your gut. You know what you need. You know how you feel if you don't feel well. If something doesn't feel right, if your money or your financial situation is getting a little stressed, don't be afraid to get on that diet.
Right.
And that's kind of where I am with that. And especially meeting with businesses.
Right. Right.
And this is the value that this partnership offers. Not only just the Black Caucus, because you have people that are members of the Black Caucus that come from the corporate background.
Right.
They also come from a number of other backgrounds. So you have access to us. We have access to our partnership with Somerset County. And you can talk to us because, believe it or not, we've been in the same spots.
Right.
Nothing changed
Right.
with respect to that. But we can talk to you and help you navigate through that while at the same time providing you with other resources. So don't be intimidated because someone sits up here and says, oh, I was in the C-suite. We came through the ranks.
Right.
And
Right.
that's how it all works.
Yep. No, it's whether it's I always, we have a very vibrant young professionals group here. One of the things I always tell those groups, we have a lot of we have a partnership with RVCC for a lot of college students who are looking to kind of take that first jump, and it's internships and mentorships.
Absolutely.
Are really gateways, and never be too prideful to ask a mentor and an intern for help. There's having people who help guide you through who've done it before is it's so invaluable, and you never hit a spot where there's not someone else for most parts, right?
Absolutely.
Unless you're really
Right.
blazing a new path.
Yeah.
There's always someone who's done it at some place, and I think that's really valuable. That even if you're owning a business, and to your point, I always tell people that there are people on different pay grades, different levels at their company, but the one thing we're all equal in is time.
Absolutely.
And a lot of the stuff we're talking about, I'm a political history buff. a lot of that stuff, like be able to dive into a good novel or a good book, those are all just in our world right now. Everything moves so fast, especially in the business world, that those are all become luxuries, and to your point, we sit here sometimes and we put on programs and events about, grants that are out there, and it's like, wow, if 5% of the business community knew, that there's a check waiting for them down in Trenton that they just don't know is available, what they could possibly do with it. But when you're in the day to day, it's so hard to get out, and there needs to be organizations like the Black Caucus who can bridge that gap and make it, even if you make it 10% easier for them,
Exactly.
you've made a world of a difference. Is there anything that, we talked a little bit about the partnership between the business partnership and the Black Caucus, but what do you think we could do as an organization, as a business association, to help engage more minority-owned businesses? Is there things that your members are telling you that there's a gap that maybe an association like ours could fill?
I'll take a stab at that. I'd like to say this, what you're doing right now, and thank you very much for giving us, Chris, this
Our pleasure.
opportunity just to sit down and talk with you and share some of our issues, our concerns in our community that we represent. So that being said, I think we got to reach out more. Just like you said, time in the day, trying to be a successful business, it's challenging, but we have a wealth of resources, as Terrence just alluded to. Tina Jalab, who's the surrogate for Somerset County, who's a judge, an attorney. We have her at our disposal.
Yep.
We reach out. If there's an idea, she, worked on our bylaws. Peg Schaefer, she's an attorney as well. That's, Somerset County, the chairwoman for the Democratic Party. So these people are all at your disposal. So, if you have a business, and I'm not saying they're here, and their resources are free, please don't get that confused.
Yeah, yep.
But these are the people that we're in the room with. Terrence,
No,
would you-
I always joke, not to interrupt, but like, Chanel and not to just give her a shout out because the county obviously is a major investor in the partnership, but the number of different hats she wears, I could have her as a primary speaker at half of our events, the partnership, right? Whether it's business leadership,
Absolutely.
Air Force, a minority trailblazer, like it's unbelievable.
And she
right.
was the one, she's one of the founding people of this organization. This was before she became the director of Somerset County. So
when I saw your website and that was in the About Us, I was like, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
So.
She's a phenomenal person, great
Yep.
human being. And I'd like to give her a shout out if we haven't. Thank you for all you've done.
Yeah, and just to continue on that theme is that the resources are here, the talent is here, and that's one of the things that, kind of led me to the Black Caucus, because I've only been a member, say, 5 years. And when I came back from my stint in Kentucky, even though I'm a New Jersey guy, born and bred, this was very appealing. Somerset County was very appealing because of what you were doing, and I was actually led here by my fiance, and she told me about this county and all the great things that you were doing. So I had to give her a shout out as well, and that's Michelle Santos. But when I got here, it was different, and that difference is going to make us, a leader not only in Somerset County but also a leader in the state. And that's what I want to do is we need to develop this model.
Yep.
And the model can be developed here because we have the people that want to participate, and we know how to communicate this to the rest of the population.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good points. Now that I've been here as long as I have, sometimes when I get frustrated, right, of like, okay, how, I haven't seen this project, whatever the project is, I haven't seen it go anywhere in a few months, 6 months. Then you take a step back and go, look at where this organization was in 2013, 2018. Sometimes I talk about our lack of diversity programming. I'm not talking about 50 years ago. I'm talking 5. What I mean? So you can step back and with the broad lens of time go, wow, we made a lot of great change, over a very short period of time. So I want to thank you both. I'm going to get you both out of here like I do for all of our guests, where we kiss up a little bit to some of our favorite places here in Somerset County. So before you guys leave, if you could let the audience know what your favorite place to dine in Somerset County is. And I know, don't be afraid to, just because you don't pick one doesn't mean you're being
Sure,
offensive.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm going to start. Somerset County is a great place to
Great foodie.
Yeah,
county, yep.
it's a foodie spot.
Yep.
Okay, and when I look at Somerset County, it's hard to pick one, but in Somerset County, I can start with Alfie's over in Warren, but the thing that leads me back to the place where my favorite restaurants are is Somerville, and the reason is Somerville is because of the downtown and all the ambiance that goes with that. So when I look at that, I look at Kaima, the Greek restaurant. But if I want to really name my number one, it's going to be Wolfgang's.
Okay. Yeah. Good porterhouse?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How about you, Jeff?
Where do I begin? No, it's tough to say. Most recent, I'll say within the last 2 weeks, I was over at Ike's, the sub shop. I believe they're located in Manville, 248 South Main Street, Manville. And I have to say, we have a lot of meetings, and I'm always on the go. I have a young family as well. So restaurants, it's a little hard to get to.
Right.
That sub shop did a phenomenal job. So I'd like to just give them a shout out.
Nice.
That's my favorite sub shop for now.
Yeah, exactly. And I think
And it can change.
Restaurants, that's always in my head is like, is it a date night or am I have my kids?
Yeah.
Is it a business meeting? All favorites,
Exactly.
different favorites for each one. So, and both of you being both obviously Somerset County guys, do you have a favorite recreational activity or a place to go in Somerset County where you just need to soak in nature?
Absolutely. I'll start.
Yeah,
Or you
you-
want to go? I'm going to say it's so easy. Our golf courses in Somerset
Yes.
County are phenomenal. And I don't know if people realize, but our county course is ranked number 3 in the state of New Jersey, which is just phenomenal for all the people and the hard work that goes behind the scenes. It's just awesome. They've been ranked year over year. They've won awards. It's reasonable. It's family friendly. They offer lessons for the young people. So I would say that the golf in Somerset County is second to none.
I've never appreciated that until I grew up in Ocean County, and I don't mind burying Ocean County, but they have nothing on Somerset when it comes to parks and rec,
Recreation,
and didn't really appreciate what a county could do until I
Absolutely.
came up here and saw Somerset County.
I would say please go onto their website. You got, there's 2 in Franklin. I know there's 1 in Warren. Just to name them, I could.
Yeah.
Because I've been there, but you got Green Knoll, you got Neshannock Valley, you got Quail Brook, Spooky Brook, Warren Brook, and they're all great.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's my rec thing. I'm not that good, but I've been at it for a couple years.
Yeah, people ask me, do you golf? I go, well, I have clubs. I don't know what you define as a golfer.
Yeah.
But how about you, Terrence?
Yeah, it's interesting you guys talk about golf because as a former college athlete and a competitor, I'm picking up golf, in the last 3 years. So I get extremely frustrated
Yes.
because
Welcome.
things came pretty easy to me, playing wide receiver and things like that in
Yeah.
college. But now I go to a golf course, not in Somerset County, but close, Shady Rest.
Mhm.
And it's the oldest African-American golf course in this country. But you can go out there and play 9 holes, and I'm not playing against Tiger Woods or somebody like that.
yeah.
I mean, I can hit a bad shot, and everybody just looks and
laughs.
Me and my son go out there, during the week on the weekends and things like that. So that's what I would say, Shady Rest.
Yeah. I think golf. I sometimes. To me, 18 holes is too much, but 9's too short. Like we gotta find like a good 12 hole golf course around. I know that they don't exist, but golf is it's I've never like when I played sport. I played baseball and hockey
Nice.
as a teenager, and nerves really never bothered me because I
Okay.
guess in those sports you're surrounded by other people and stuff. Even though like baseball can be an individual from time to time sport, golf, there's something of like I can go to the driving range, be fine, and then when I'm out in the course and there's like literally maybe two other people there, like shell shock
Yeah.
comes in. So it's a very in your head type of sport. And I haven't mastered that part of it at all. But there's a good place to learn right here. Is
Absolutely.
Somerset County. So I want to thank you both for coming on the Scoop podcast. What's the website again? So if there's anyone who's listening here can find out more about the caucus.
Sure. The website is for the Somerset County Democratic Black Caucus is it's www.scdcblackcaucus.org.
Maybe we can get this podcast once it's out up on the website too.
That'd be great.
Yep. So thank you both for joining us today, and thanks Somerset County for listening in. And until we talk again.
Thank you.
Awesome. 22 minutes. Okay.